Hey, it's Leo. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about my April TBR and the first 3 books that I have finished on it. That still leaves 7 to go, so we'll see if I make it. But for now, let's go into the first 3. If you recall from my last week's video, my April TBR was created following the prompts from Lianne at Literary Diversions. So prompt 8 was the first book that I read here. I went out of order. It's fine. Which was theoretically a book from my Kindle. And instead, I went with a book on my Libro FM, which is a great audio book service that's similar to but different from the big name ones that also allows you to support a local bookshop. So the book that I read for prompt 8 was House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. For prompt 7, I read Rebel, the first book in the Women Who Dare series by Beverly Jenkins. And for my third book so far this month, for prompt 3, a book of over 400 pages, and it's actually a little bit heftier than that, The Warmth of Other Suns, the epic story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson. So each week on my channel, in addition to talking about books and all things literature, I also lift up a nonprofit and share with you the work that they do. I also will donate to that nonprofit, and I invite you to like, share, follow, donate as you are inspired or able to do so. This week, our nonprofit is the Black Matter Alliance. The racial and ethnic disparities that exist in pregnancy-related deaths are just alarming. In addition to the risk of mortality, Black people who give birth are much more likely than white people who give birth to report being treated unfairly and with disrespect by providers due to their race, not having decision autonomy during labor and delivery, and feeling pressured to have a cesarean section. So the Black Matter Alliance is a national network of Black women-led organizations and multidisciplinary professionals who work to ensure that all Black mamas have the rights, respect, and resources to thrive before, during, and after pregnancy. The Black Matter Alliance honors the work and historical contributions of Black women's leadership within their communities and values the need to amplify this work on a national scale. So I invite you to join me in making a donation to the Black Matter Alliance and like or follow them at the links below. Thank you. So as I mentioned, in this video, I want to cover the first 3 books I finished in my April TBR, and I give them all 5 stars. So excited about these books. The first book that I want to tell you about is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I love the writing, I love the story. I actually intended to use this book as for something that's called habit stacking, where I was only going to let myself listen to this book because I did it through audio, if I was also going for a long walk so that I could entice myself to go for these walks. But the book was just too good, and so I just binged it and finished it and didn't walk the whole time. It's good. I want to tell you all about it now. So in The House in the Cerulean Sea, we meet Linus Baker. When the story starts off, he's just this really unlucky cog in this big bureaucracy, which is the department in charge of magical youth. He's a case manager who checks in on orphanages with magical youth and makes sure that the kids are safe and being treated well. And he's just doing his job and trying to do the best he can. So he's sent by extremely upper management to the Marsyas Island orphanage that has 6 dangerous kids and a mysterious master of the house. And he's there to investigate whether or not it should be kept open. This book, this story is funny, it's sweet. I fell in love with so many of the characters. I really appreciated the messages about valuing diversity, of love and found family, and standing up against bigotry and oppressive forces. So I highly recommend it. The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. It's definitely worth it. The second book that I read is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins, the first book in the Women Who Dare series. And I loved this book. It's the story of Valinda Lacey, a school teacher in New York, from New York in the 1860s, who goes down to New Orleans to help provide education to those who were formerly enslaved. She runs into the dashing Captain Drake Levesque, and sparks fly, but obstacles ensue, and it's just a wonderful love story. It's also a story that's set in a real period of struggle and hardship in the Black community. This was a time right after the Civil War. What I appreciated about this story was that it was an incredible mix. The writing was incredibly done of including some of the hard stories and the realities, but also the hopeful and just the human. So, we see some of the resistance where the white folks are shutting down schools, vandalizing schools, etc. But we see lack of justice and indifference by the government to violence, murder, arson against the Black community, by the white population, and that's not dealt with in a way that just like brushes it off or sets it aside. It's a part of the reality of this story, but it also definitely captures the human story of these characters, that they are more than the white supremacy that is trying to oppress them. I loved so many of these characters. I loved Valinda Lacey and the whole Levesque family. They're, strong women, big hearts, stubborn lovers, but they didn't fall into some of the like stereotypical trope of the whole book could have been solved if they just had an honest conversation. Like, I didn't feel like that was at play. But they were also just like, they were strong characters who had to each go on their own journey. And so that was wonderful. I wasn't expecting this. Maybe I should have been. I grew up on Georgia Hire that ends in a like chaste kiss, and so this was not that. And there was some steamy sex, but it was very sweet and well written, and consensual and appropriate and lovely. So I'm really grateful that I don't remember who first recommended the Beverly Jenkins to me. I know that Leah is also a fan, so I'm so glad that I found her, and I highly recommend Beverly Jenkins as a historical romance author and Rebel, in the first book in the Women Who Dare series. The third book that I finished was for the prompt of over 400 pages, but this sucker is a little bit more than that. This is The Warmth of Other Suns, the epic story of America's Great Migration by Isabel Wilkerson. This was an incredible book, 5 stars, highly recommend. I would encourage you not to be intimidated by either the length or the topic. This is a book about the migration of African Americans from the South to the North, Northwest, the West, during the time from 1915 to 1970, in part to flee the white supremacy and the Jim Crow laws. This book is really an incredible piece of writing, of academic work, and of exploration of this topic. Isabel Wilkerson interviewed over 1,000 people and really dug into a lot of historical records and archives, and wrote this account of how the journeys unfolded, how the migration unfolded from different cities in the South to different places in the North and Northwest, and how that impacted our cities and our nation. I just really believe that this book should be taught in schools and read in schools. It is filled with so many analytical insights and historical quotes and these reports that I mentioned, but also, and this is I think the biggest strength, just really deeply human stories. So this story, or this book, as it covers this migration from 1915 to 1970, follows three individuals and their stories. So we have Ida Mae Gladney, who left sharecropping in 1937 from Mississippi, and she winds up in Chicago. And then we have George Starling, who in 1945 fled from Florida for standing up to the orange grove growers, and fled and wound up in Harlem. And then we have Robert Foster, who left Louisiana in 1953 to be a doctor and ends up in California. These stories, they're important. There's painful parts, as we see the reality of white supremacy, the harshness of the Jim Crow laws, and really the license it gave the white community to just kill and harass the Black community for no reason. Incredibly disgusting and horrific, honestly. It also showed the ways in which white people, for example, would rather blow up a whole building of 20 units than let one Black family move in, for example. So the destructive nature and the way that white supremacy and fear of the other really just tears apart so many communities. And I think this is important to talk about. I think this has shaped so much of our cities, our nation, and we don't talk about this, really, I don't think. In the midst of reading about these really horrific experiences and the struggles, we also just find these captivating stories of these families and individuals who made choices. Honestly, I was surprised that this became a page turner. I was staying up too late and trying to get to the end of the chapter or the end of the next section to find out what happened to these people at different parts of their journeys. And honestly, a lot of that is just the masterful storytelling of Isabel Wilkerson. One other piece that I'll say in terms of encouraging you to pick this up is you don't have to keep track of all the details in your head. She does a good job of reminding you who the people are, if there's an important callback that she's making, she'll remind you of that. So you can really follow and dive into these lives and hear these stories. So it's not just a book about suffering. It's a book of strength and courage and hope for these Black individuals and families and community. But again, I think it's I don't think I was taught this, certainly not to this level of conversation, and I think that's really unfortunate. I mean, I know that a lot of the country right now is diving into hearing Black stories and anti-racist work in ways that we haven't before, and I'm glad we're doing that now, and we should have been doing that all along, and we shouldn't have been looking the other way while these things were happening to our neighbors and to the people who breathe the same air as we do, and are human beings too. I think we as a nation really need to learn how to talk about this reality of our past. We need to undo the myths that we've been told about inner cities and welfare queens and those sorts of myths. We need to talk about what equal opportunity really means in the face of so much prejudice and systemic and racism by policy and behavior, and what that's done for folks, and the continued implications and policy decisions that have followed. I apologize if I'm rambling here. I don't attempt to be the expert on how to be anti-racist or what we need to do to make this world a better place. But I know that we can do better. And I think one thing that you can do is to to read and to read this book, to learn, to be changed, and to hear the important stories of these individuals and their families. Speaking of nonfiction works, I also want to give a shout out to one of the channels that I follow, Thistle and Verse, and there was a really great chat that happened just recently. It was called Reading Black Authored Nonfiction, a chat. I'll link it down below. So many great insights and really good discussion that it was a gift to be able to sit in on. Loved the humor and the intelligence of it, and also the awesome and abundant book recommendations. So I commend that to you. I'll link it down below. With all of that, I'll sign off for tonight. And again, commend to you the Black Mamas Matter Alliance and the Black Maternal Health Conference. This weekend, it looks like registration is closed, but stay tuned and follow them for future conferences. Well, and now that I finished this video, I also need to finish the rest of the 7 books I have on my TBR for April. I'm not sure I'll make it, but that's okay. I just want to say there's no failure, right? There's just books and learning and joy. So thanks for watching. Blessings to you and yours, and see you next time. And see you in the comments. Thanks.